I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded, smiled the way I always do, and excused myself to use the restroom. And then I texted my attorney. That was 3 months ago. By now, my brother-in-law's construction firm has lost its primary financing, its biggest commercial contract, and somewhere around 40 employees. The local news called it a surprising collapse for one of the region's fastest-growing companies. Nobody outside this family knows why it really happened. I'm going to tell you, my name is not important. What matters is that I'm 31 years old, I run a small urban planning consultancy out of my apartment, and for the last 4 years, I've been the unnamed co-investor behind the firm that was supposed to make my brother-in-law famous. His name is Donovan. He married my older sister Celeste 7 years ago, and from the moment they started dating, he made it his personal mission to let everyone in our family know that I was the lesser sister, not loudly. Donovan was too polished for that. He did it the way men like him always do, with raised eyebrows, with half smiles, with comments that sounded like compliments if you weren't listening closely enough. Oh, you're still doing the freelance thing? That's so, you're dilding the freelance thing? That's so, city zoning stuff. Interesting that pays. Celeste told me you got a grant. Good for you. Every little bit helps, right? He said these things at Sunday dinners, at holiday gatherings, at my own birthday party one year, in front of my parents and my grandmother and my sister's in-laws and anyone else who happened to be in earshot. And every time, Celeste laughed. Not cruelly. She just laughed. Like it was banter. Like we were all in on the same joke. I was the joke. I need you to understand something about my family before I go further, because it matters. My parents are good people. I want to say that clearly. They worked hard. They loved us. They sacrificed. But there was always a version of the story they told about their 2 daughters, and in that story, Celeste was the one who had made it. She had married well. She had a beautiful house in a good suburb. She drove a nice car. Her husband was on the board of 2 local nonprofits and got quoted in the business section sometimes, and I was the other one, the one who rented, the one who ate lunch at her desk, the one who came to Thanksgiving with a bottle of wine from the middle shelf because she probably couldn't afford the good stuff. My father once introduced me to his colleague as the creative one. He meant it affectionately, I think. But I noticed he introduced Celeste as my daughter who married Donovan Ashworth of Ashworth Build. I noticed everything. I always have. I just never said anything. That's the part no one understood about me. I wasn't quiet because I was passive. I was quiet because I was building something. And you cannot build something if you spend all your energy defending it before it's ready. I started my consultancy, Meridian Planning Group, when I was 26. It was just me and a laptop and a sublet office the size of a large closet. I worked on transit corridor studies, zoning impact assessments, affordable housing feasibility reports, the unglamorous infrastructure work that cities need but rarely celebrate. I was good at it. More than good. Within 2 years, I had 3 municipal contracts and a reputation in a very specific, very niche world. The kind of world where nobody outside it knows your name, but inside it, people answer your calls. By 28, I had quietly invested the profits into 2 small real estate development funds run by a woman named Harriet. No, wait. I need to stop myself. That's not her name. I'm protecting people here, so let me call her what she is, my financial advisor, who is brilliant and who I have trusted with every significant decision I've made since I was 27. By 29, my net worth had crossed a number that would have made Donovan's jaw drop. By 30, it had crossed it again. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not Celeste, not my best friend from college. I drove the same car. I kept the same apartment. I bought wine from the middle shelf. I was not hiding. I was just not advertising. There's a difference. Here is how Donovan got involved. About 4 years ago, he came to me directly. That surprised me. He usually treated me like ambient noise. Present, but not worth directing attention toward. But one afternoon, he called my cell, asked if I had time to talk, and then explained that his company was in a good position to expand, but needed a capital infusion that the bank wasn't going to cover at terms he liked. He wanted private investors. He was working his network. He didn't ask me as a serious option. I could tell by how he framed it. He was doing me a favor by including me in the conversation, letting me feel like I was part of something, giving me a story to tell at dinner. Oh, Donovan mentioned his company to me. I gave him some feedback. That sort of thing, he said, and I remember this exactly. I figured even if you can only do 20 or 30,000, every bit helps, right? And it keeps it in the family. Every bit helps, right? And it keeps it in the family. Every bit helps. I told him I'd think about it. I did my due diligence over the next 2 weeks. I reviewed his financials, his contracts, his projections, his permits. The bones were solid. Donovan was genuinely talented at the operational side of construction, logistics, scheduling, vendor relationships. What he was bad at was the financial architecture. He was overextended in ways he didn't fully see yet. I called my financial advisor. We ran numbers. I made a decision. I came back to Donovan and told him I was interested in a more significant position. He laughed. Not unkindly, more like he thought I'd made a math error somewhere. He asked what I meant by significant. I told him. The silence on the phone lasted almost 10 seconds. He recovered quickly, the way men like Donovan always do. He started asking questions. Where did that come from? How long had I been doing this? Why hadn't anyone known? I answered what was necessary and deflected the rest. I told him I preferred to stay out of the operational picture entirely. I wanted a written agreement that my involvement would not be disclosed without my explicit consent. He agreed. I think he convinced himself it was a one-time windfall, an inheritance maybe, or a lucky investment. I let him believe whatever he needed to believe. The agreement was drafted, the funds transferred. I became a silent partner in Ashworth Build, and then, at the very next family dinner, Donovan told my father that the company's new growth phase was entirely self-financed to smart leverage and strong relationships. I ate my green beans and said nothing. For the next 3 years I watched. The company grew fast. Donovan had real skill and he used it. He landed a major commercial development contract with a regional hospital system, which put Ashworth Build in a different league. He was profiled in the Business Journal. He was invited to speak at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast. My parents bought a framed copy of the article and put it on the wall of their living room next to a photo of Celeste and Donovan's wedding. There is no photo of anything I have ever done on that wall. I want to be accurate about that. At Celeste's birthday dinner that second year, Donovan held up a glass and gave a toast. He thanked his wife for her support, his team for their dedication, and his own hard work and vision for bringing the company to where it was. I was sitting 3 feet away. I raised my glass with everyone else. My financial advisor sent me a message that night that just said, patience. She knew the full picture. She had watched me put a significant portion of my personal capital into this company, not as an act of generosity toward my family, but as an investment I believed would return well. And also, I will be honest with you, because some part of me wanted to understand what it felt like to hold the thing that nobody thought I could hold. The problems started about 18 months in. Donovan had expanded too fast. The hospital contract was real, but the margins were thinner than he projected, and he'd taken on 3 additional projects simultaneously to capitalize on the momentum. He was managing 6 active sites, and the cash flow was getting stretched. He called me twice during this period, friendly and casual, asking how things were going, mentioning the company in passing. He wasn't asking me for anything directly. He was, I realized, keeping the door warm, reminding me I was involved. In case he needed to come back, I was cordial. I said things were fine. I waited. The calls from the family got warmer during this period too, in a way that had a specific texture. My mother started asking about my apartment. Are you comfortable there, honey? It seems small for someone your age. Celeste started sending me articles about refinancing and financial planning, with notes like, thought this might be useful. My father asked twice about my retirement situation. They didn't know about my investment. They thought I was fine, but precarious. They were, in their way, trying to help. But what it felt like from where I was sitting was that even when they worried about me, it was a kind of worry that confirmed their understanding of the hierarchy. Celeste had stability. I needed to think about retirement. Then came the dinner. It was my parents' anniversary. 38 years. The whole family, Celeste and Donovan, their 2 kids, my parents, My aunt and uncle who had driven in from out of state. My aunt and uncle who I love, who are warm and funny and have always treated me like a full person. We were in the middle of the meal when my uncle asked me what I was working on. I said I had just finished a transit feasibility study for a mid-sized city in the Midwest and was starting a new engagement with a port authority on the East Coast. Donovan looked up from his plate. Port authority, he said, with a specific kind of smile. That's a lot of government work. Is there real money in that? My uncle started to say something. He was going to defend me, I could tell, but I answered first. Enough, I said. I just ask, Donovan said, because I always wonder if the public sector stuff actually pays well or if it's more of a passion project situation. My father laughed, lightly, nervously. The way he laughs when he doesn't know whose side to be on. My mother said, she's always loved her work, that's what matters. Which sounds supportive. But what it communicated in the context of everything was, the money isn't the point for her. Celeste said nothing. She was cutting her chicken. I looked at Donovan. He was looking at me with that same half smile, comfortable, unchallenged, secure in the knowledge that he had built something real, and I had built something charming, and something shifted in me. Not explosively, quietly, like a latch releasing. I excused myself to use the restroom. I sent my financial advisor a message. 3 words. Start the process. She knew what it meant. We had talked about exit scenarios before. Not because I planned this, but because she's thorough and she makes me plan for everything. I want to be clear about something because I think it matters. I didn't do this to destroy Donovan. I did this because I had been patient for 4 years. I had watched my investment help build something that he took sole credit for, in front of the people who mattered most to me, over and over again. I had sat at tables where my work was called a passion project, while his was called vision. I had been asked repeatedly and in various gentle ways whether I was okay financially, professionally, as an adult functioning in the world, while the man across from me was hosting galas on money that was partly mine. I had tried, on 2 separate occasions, to tell Celeste something. Not the full truth. Just a suggestion that things might not be entirely as they appeared. She brushed it off. Donovan is good at what he does. You know that. As if I'd been questioning his talent rather than his narrative, at a certain point, silence becomes its own kind of decision. My exit from the investment was structured cleanly. There was nothing dramatic about it from the outside. A series of financial transactions, a notification to the operating agreement counterparty, Donovan. A legal process that my attorney managed efficiently. Donovan called me the day he received the formal notice. He was not calm. What is this, he said, not a question. A statement. I told him it was a standard exit per the terms of the agreement we had both signed. You can't just, this is terrible timing. Do you know what this does to the hospital project? I said I did understand the timing was difficult and that I was sorry for the disruption. Sorry. You're sorry. His voice had a quality I had never heard from him before. Do you know how much I've done for this family? Do you know what it means to Celeste, to your parents, that this company, what it means to them, I said, is that you built it by yourself, through smart leverage and strong relationships. That's what you told my father. Silence. I'll have my attorney available if you have questions about the process, I said. Take care of yourself, Donovan. I hung up. The following weeks were hard, in some ways I didn't expect. Donovan told Celeste almost immediately. Celeste called me, and that call was not like the one with Donovan. She wasn't angry. She was confused, hurt in a way that felt genuine. You've had all this money and you never told me? For 4 years? I tried to explain. I told her about the pattern, the dinners, the comments, the way her husband had taken credit for something I had helped build. She listened. I think she actually heard some of it. But then she said, you could have talked to me. You didn't have to do it this way. And I had to sit with that for a while, because she wasn't entirely wrong. I think if I'm being honest with myself, I wanted them to find out the way they did. I wanted the moment of recognition to be undeniable. I wanted there to be no version of the story where Donovan could smile and reframe and make me the footnote again. That's a human thing. It's not entirely noble. I'm not claiming it was. My parents found out from Celeste. My mother called me crying, which I had expected. My father asked me why I hadn't told them, which I hadn't expected to hit me as hard as it did. We would have been so proud, he said. We had no idea. That sentence took a few days to stop echoing. Ashworth Build did not collapse completely. I want to be honest about that too, because I'm not here to tell you a story that's neater than what actually happened. The exit caused a serious liquidity problem that forced Donovan to sell off 2 of the smaller projects at a loss and renegotiate the hospital contract terms. He laid off a significant portion of his crew. The company survived, but it was materially smaller than it had been, and the business journal that had profiled him did a follow-up piece that was notably less enthusiastic. He did not get another profile for a long time. My parents and I had a long conversation eventually. My father cried, which I had never seen before, and which I don't know how to summarize except to say it changed something between us that needed to change. Celeste and I are working on it. That's the most accurate thing I can say. We have dinner sometimes, the 2 of us, without Donovan. We are both trying to say things we should have said a long time ago. Some of those conversations are good. Some of them are hard. All of them are more honest than anything we'd had in the previous 7 years. Donovan, I have spoken to exactly once since the call. It was at my parents' house unavoidably. He was civil. I was civil. There was nothing left to perform. I get asked sometimes by my financial advisor, by the 1 or 2 friends who know the full story, whether I regret it. I've thought about it. I don't regret the exit itself. I had the right to make that business decision, and I made it in accordance with the legal agreement, and the timing being difficult for Donovan does not change the fact that he had treated me as furniture for 4 years while benefiting from my capital. What I think about more is the silence, the years of it. I chose to be invisible because I thought I was being strategic, and maybe I was. But there was also fear in it. Fear that if I was visible and they still didn't see me, I would have to accept something I didn't want to accept about my family. The exit forced that conversation, the hard one, the one where my parents had to look at me and reckon with what they hadn't seen. I'm not sure I would have had the courage to start that conversation any other way. I'm not sure that makes the way I did it right. I hold both of those things. What I know is this. I built something real. I built it quietly, without applause, without anyone putting a framed article on a wall. And when the time came, I let it speak. That was enough. It turned out that was more than enough. I still drive the same car. I still live in my apartment, though I bought the building last year, quietly through an LLC my attorney set up. My neighbors don't know. My family doesn't know yet. Celeste and I had dinner last Thursday. She asked about the Port Authority project. I told her about it. She asked questions, real questions, the kind that meant she was actually listening. At the end of the night, she said, "I didn't know you were this impressive." I looked at her across the table, my older sister, who I have loved my entire life, who laughed at the wrong times for the wrong reasons, who is trying now, genuinely trying. And I said, "I know you didn't." "That's kind of the whole story." She nodded. We paid the bill and went home. I've thought a lot about what the word invisible actually means. For most of my 20s, I thought I was choosing invisibility strategically. Stay quiet, build the thing, let the work speak when it's ready. And there's truth in that. You genuinely cannot build something real while spending all your energy defending it to people who've already decided what you are. But I've had to be honest with myself about the other part, the part that wasn't strategy, the part that was fear. Because if you stay quiet long enough, you get to avoid the moment where someone sees you fully and still doesn't value you. Your silence protects you from that. It keeps the possibility alive that they just didn't know. That if they knew, things would be different. Donovan knew, eventually, and things were different. That's real. But my father who said, "We would have been so proud," he didn't need to wait 4 years to say that. I didn't need to engineer a collapse to earn that conversation. I held back the information because some part of me was protecting myself from finding out whether the recognition would come even without the proof. That's the thing about integrity that nobody talks about. It's not just about doing the right thing when others are watching. It's about doing the honest thing with yourself, privately, about why you're making the choices you're making. I told myself I was being disciplined. I was also being afraid. Both were true at the same time. What I understand now, after all of it, after Donovan's firm, after the calls with Celeste, after my father crying at the kitchen table, is that the people in your life who are worth keeping will reckon with the truth when it arrives. They may need time. They may need the proof to be undeniable. That's a human limitation, not necessarily a verdict on their love. My family failed me in specific, real ways. They also, when the moment came, showed up for it, not perfectly, but genuinely. I'm not asking you to forgive the people in your life who diminished you. That's your call, not mine, and I won't pretend it's simple. What I will say is that the work you do in private, the discipline, the patience, the choosing to build something real when nobody is applauding, that work shapes you regardless of whether anyone ever recognizes it. Donovan's comments at those dinners stung. They also made me sharper. Every time I sat across from him and said nothing, I was practicing something. Not silence as defeat, silence as precision. Celeste asked me recently how I stayed motivated when no one knew what I was doing. I told her the truth. I stopped needing the motivation to come from outside. That's not an overnight shift. It took years of very small choices. Choosing to work on the transit study when I could have complained about not being appreciated. Choosing to reinvest instead of spending on things that would signal success to other people. Choosing to let the numbers speak for themselves in a room where I was the only one listening. That's what I'd want anyone to take from this. Not the drama of the exit. Not the satisfaction of Donovan's emergency board meeting. What I'd want you to take is this. The version of you that nobody has seen yet is still real. It doesn't require an audience to exist. Build it anyway. The moment of recognition, if it comes, will be sweeter for the wait. And if it never comes, if the people around you never fully see it, you'll still have built something that belongs entirely to you. That's not nothing. That's actually everything.